February 11, 2013 began like any other in the quiet village of Tanduo, Lahad Datu. The sun rose gently over the Celebes Sea, casting a golden light on the palm-fringed coastline. Villagers went about their daily routines, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. But that morning the peace was shattered. The sound of distant engines and hurried footsteps broke the calm, sending ripples of anxiety through the community. Boats approached the shore, unusual only in their numbers and the men they carried. The villagers watched in disbelief as wave after wave of strangers landed on their familiar beaches. Around 200 armed men, some in military fatigues, others in civilian clothes, landed and declared themselves the royal security forces of the Sultanate of Sulu and North Borneo. Their arrival was sudden, their intentions clear and unwavering. Their leader, Agbimuddin Kiram, announced they had come to reclaim what they believed was their ancestral land. He spoke with conviction, rallying his followers and sending a message to the world that this was not a simple incursion, but a mission rooted in history and identity. The village was transformed overnight into the epicenter of an international crisis. Malaysian security forces mobilized quickly, their vehicles rumbling into the village as tension mounted with every passing hour. News spread quickly, panic gripping the community as the armed group set up a defensive perimeter. Families gathered what they could carry, fleeing their homes in fear, while others hid, hoping the violence would pass them by. The standoff had begun, dragging a centuries-old dispute into the present. The air was thick with uncertainty as both sides dug in, unwilling to back down. For the villagers, history had arrived at their doorstep, armed and demanding recognition. The echoes of past conflicts now played out in real time, just beyond their windows. Malaysia saw invaders threatening its sovereignty. The Philippines faced a diplomatic nightmare, caught between historical claims and modern alliances. The world watched as tensions escalated, hoping for a peaceful resolution. The standoff would last weeks, result in dozens of deaths, and force thousands to flee. Families were torn apart, homes destroyed, and the scars of conflict etched into the land and its people. Lahad Datu became a brutal reminder. The past can erupt into the present without warning. The world's attention was drawn to this remote corner of Sabah, where history, politics, and human lives collided. The peace of Sabah was gone, replaced by fear and uncertainty. For the people of Tanduo and beyond, the events of that day would never be forgotten, a stark lesson in how quickly everything can change. The villagers of Tanduo were thrust into chaos. Homes became front lines, families fled into plantations or to relatives. The Sulu group claimed to protect locals, but their presence brought only fear. Malaysian forces encircled the area, helicopters roared overhead, and daily life stopped. Fishermen and farmers were cut off from their livelihoods. Food and water grew scarce. The psychological toll was immense, especially on children. The government first tried negotiation, offering safe passage if the group surrendered. The Sulu group refused, insisting on their claim. After weeks of tension, Malaysia launched Operation Daulat airstrikes and ground assaults, turned Tanduo into a battleground. The villagers' worst fears were realized as violence erupted. The crisis left deep scars on the community, changing their lives forever. To truly understand the roots of the Sabah incursion, we must journey far back in time, beyond recent headlines and political debates. We must look back centuries to a period when empires and sultanates shaped the fate of Southeast Asia through alliances, wars, and royal decrees. In 1658, the Sultan of Brunei, grateful for military assistance, rewarded the Sultan of Sulu with control over eastern Sabah. This act was more than a simple gesture. It was a transfer of land and power that would echo through the centuries. For the Sulu Sultanate, Sabah became a core part of their domain and identity, woven into their royal lineage and cultural memory. Generations of Sulu rulers collected taxes, administered justice, and controlled trade in the region, establishing a legacy of governance that persisted for centuries. Today, the heirs of the Sultanate see themselves as a government in exile, holding on to traditions and waiting for the day they might reclaim what they believe is their birthright. The Philippine government has at various times recognized and supported this claim, adding fuel to a dispute that spans borders and generations. For Malaysia, however, history took a decisive turn when Sabah joined the Federation in 1963, marking what they see as the end of any previous claims. At the heart of the conflict lies a fundamental disagreement. One side sees an unbroken chain of ownership and duty, while the other points to a legal transfer and international recognition of Malaysia's sovereignty. This clash of histories, identities, and legal interpretations keeps the Sabah issue alive, making it not just a political dispute, but a deeply emotional and personal matter for many. The modern dispute centers on the 1878 treaty between the Sultan of Sulu and British adventurers. The key word, pajak. Does it mean lease or cede? The Philippine side says lease, meaning sovereignty was never surrendered. Malaysia says cede, meaning permanent transfer. Annual payments to the Sultan's heirs are seen as rent by one side, session money by the other. The original document's ambiguous language fuels the legal battle. Over 140 years later, the meaning of pajak still shapes borders and national identities. This single word remains the legal and emotional battleground for Sabah. After 1878, the British North Borneo Company took control of Sabah, a region rich in resources and strategic value. As part of their administration, they agreed to make annual payments to the heirs of the Sultan of Sulu, a practice that would have far-reaching consequences for decades to come. The Philippines argues these payments are clear evidence that the arrangement was a lease, not a sale, while Malaysia insists they were simply session money, final payment for sovereignty over Sabah. After World War II, Britain assumed direct control of Sabah. In 1963, as Malaysia was formed, Sabah joined the new federation, and Malaysia continued the annual payments to the Sulu heirs, maintaining the traditions set by the British. But in 2013, following the violent Lahad Datu incursion by armed men claiming to represent the Sulu Sultanate, Malaysia abruptly stopped making these payments, citing security concerns and the attack's impact on national sovereignty. The Sulu heirs viewed this as a serious breach of their historic agreement. Feeling wronged, they decided to pursue justice through international arbitration, seeking compensation for what they saw as an unlawful cessation. In 2022, a French court sided with the heirs, awarding them a staggering $14.9 billion. However, Malaysia firmly rejected the ruling, refusing to pay and challenging the court's authority. The legal fight has now escalated, spreading to courts across Europe and beyond. The Sulu heirs are actively seeking to seize Malaysian government assets abroad, turning the dispute into a truly international saga. What began as a colonial-era arrangement has transformed into a high-stakes global legal battle, drawing in governments, lawyers, and courts from around the world. The dispute has moved from the pages of dusty treaties to the glare of modern courtrooms, with billion-dollar claims and international headlines keeping the world's attention fixed on Sabah. Malaysia's main argument is self-determination. In 1963, the UN sent a mission to Sabah and Sarawak to gauge public opinion on joining Malaysia. Consultations and election results showed a clear majority favored joining the new federation. The Cobbled Commission found little support for joining the Philippines. On September 16, 1963, Malaysia was formed, with Sabahans choosing their own future. For Malaysia, this act of self-determination is final. The debate is now between historical rights and the modern right to choose. For Sabahans, their choice in 1963 is what matters most. For Sabah's nearly 4 million people, the dispute is not abstract, it's personal. The 2013 incursion killed security forces, Sulu fighters and civilians, and displaced thousands. Malaysia responded with heavy security, ESSCOM, checkpoints and sea curfews. These measures disrupt daily life, especially for fishermen and border communities. The dispute strains relations. especially for those with Filipino heritage. Economic uncertainty and suspicion linger, deterring investment and tourism. Many Sabahans feel ignored, their voices lost in a geopolitical tug-of-war. They want better infrastructure, education, and opportunities, not to be pawns in a historical dispute. The real cost is the uncertainty and frustration of having their future debated by others. Sabahans want to move forward, not be defined by conflict. Sabah is more than a disputed territory. It's a land of beauty and diversity. Home to Mount Kinabalu, rainforests, and vibrant cultures, Sabah's greatest strength is its people. Over 30 indigenous groups, plus Chinese, Malay, and Filipino communities, create a unique social fabric. Daily concerns are practical schools, healthcare, jobs, and infrastructure. Sabahans are proud of their identity, distinct from both Peninsular Malaysia and the Philippines. Festivals and multiculturalism unite them, not divide. Many seek greater autonomy within Malaysia, focusing on local needs over old disputes. Outsiders' debates often feel disrespectful, reducing Sabah to a prize. Sabahans chose their path in 1963. Their priority is peace and progress. Their identity is defined by unity and love for their land, not by external claims. The Sabah claim is a lesson in how the past can haunt the present, but the world of sultans and colonial treaties is gone. Today, self-determination matters most, the will of Sabahans expressed in 1963 and reaffirmed since. Continuing the claim only breeds instability and division. The Philippines and Malaysia should focus on cooperation, not conflict. A lasting solution means respecting Sabahans' identity and aspirations. The Philippine government dropping the claim would be an act of statesmanship, not defeat. Sabah's future belongs to its people, not to history books or foreign courts. The international community should support Sabah's autonomy and progress. The final chapter should be written in the language of peace, not conflict.